So it appears that once again, Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk, his own fans have turned on him for the 50th time. I know. Um, but as you guys know, what's going on right now is there's a Kellogg strike going on. And so Kellogg's has all of these different brands. There are photos circulating that show all of their brands in order for people to boycott their goods. So it's pretty remarkable. There's a lot of things to learn from this Kellogg's strike. There's thousands of workers striking. And during this monumental 1,000+ worker strike going on, it's thousands of workers striking, Kyle Kulinski decides to send out a tweet saying, "I'm on the all cheez-it diet." Now, cheez-its, obviously, you guys know what cheez-its are, little square cheese things. And Kyle is pretty notorious, I guess, for eating some bad stuff. He does it a lot on Kyle and Corn, and he jokes about it a lot. But I don't think he's like eating like shit like every day of the week. Probably just doing it once or twice a week or whatever. But lo and behold, it actually turns out the Cheez-Its are under the Kellogg's Trust. Okay, this is a trust right here, Kelloggs Trust. If you ever heard of trust busting would mean breaking this up, forcing them to sell off brands. Kellogg's here, look at all of this stuff that they sell. These are all of their things that they sell here. There's so much stuff, like even stuff that's not even their branded stuff. So obviously you can see like Kellogg's Mini Wheats, Kellogg's Rice Krispies, Kellogg's Eggos. But they also have stuff like Pringles and Cheez-Its and Pop-Tarts and all this other stuff that they have, essentially absorbed and have made part of their trust here. It goes to show you just how horrible corporate consolidation is. And it's actually learning more and more about economics, learning about how consolidated our country is in terms of corporations and conglomerates. To me, the corporate consolidation is the most important issue, even now for me, superseding Medicare for all. It definitely impacts us in every way, shape, and form. The 1996 Telecommunications Act lifted a bunch of regulations that the government had set on how many radio stations, how many news stations could be purchased by one company. And so what ended up happening was after that, 5 conglomerates now control 90% of media. So you can even see like Disney owning a bunch of stuff. Music radio is now heavily homogenized because it's owned by so many of just one conglomerate. And so CNN and all these companies, all being owned by parent companies like Comcast, it allows this stranglehold on corporations, on society from corporations to the point where they effectively control society, obviously. The news media controls the narratives in people's head because they tell you what's happening. They don't actually see what's happening. They listen to what they tell them is happening. So a good example of that is like Bernie Sanders running for president that you saw in 2020. Anytime he would win anything, before that, when he was running, everyone was shitting on him nonstop because corporations don't want him. They're going to hire people that are going to maintain the status quo. And then even when he's winning elections, everybody's shitting on him. And typically when you win elections, there's supposed to be some positive coverage at least that's supposed to help your campaign. But when literally everybody employed by a news network is there to shit on you, they're controlling the election outcome. That's essentially what they're doing. So every hour, there's some new corporate douchebag host on MSNBC shitting on Bernie Sanders, even as he just routed Nevada. But when Joe Biden won South Carolina, the entirety of the news media was, licking him dry. So it's not fair. 5 conglomerates own 90% of the media. So corporate consolidation is the most important thing. Corporate consolidation obviously creates barriers to entries for other firms in the industry. So a company like Apple, for example, they build their own parts, most of their own parts, I believe, for their own phone. That obviously creates a burden for you to jump into the industry because you can't purchase those that they make. So you can't compete with them. So obviously this is really, really awful. And so even like shoe stores, I remember learning that going into Champs and then the bag, I guess, like the cashier told me that like their sister companies are like Foot Action and I think even Foot Locker. And it's like, dude, think about that. Champs, Foot Locker, like all these companies, these shoe stores, they're owned by the same parent company. It's the fakest competition thing I've ever seen in my life. It's not real. It's a sham. It's this like weird facade of competition, but really they're all owned by the same parent company. Like Old Navy is owned by Gap. It's all a joke. So this is every industry you look at is heavily oligopolized. And you can just see here all of the brands that they have. So Kellogg's is a trust, right? So if you wanted a trust bust, you'd force them to sell these off to other buyers. And so that's what you want to do. We need to bust trust. We need to break these companies apart. Apple purchasing Beats is horizontal integration. Horizontal integration is when you purchase up a competitor of yours. So if you are a headphone maker and you buy up another headphone maker, that's horizontal integration. Example of that would be Apple purchasing Samsung, for example. Vertical integration is when you purchase businesses that create the items that are needed to create your product. So Apple is vertically integrated by creating their own parts for their phones, so other people can't compete with them anymore, that creating a further barrier to entry. So you need to create a true free market by doing all of this stuff, by breaking this up so that other people can compete. So Kyle sending this tweet out, "I'm on the all cheez-it diet," during this strike is obviously an awful, awful look. Not only is it a shitty thing to do, obviously, because it's going on, the optics of it look terrible. Because on its face, it's a terrible thing to do. But not only is it a terrible thing to do on its face, but it's also something that the optics just look like shit. Especially, I just did a video recently about his own fans on his subreddit questioning, like, damn, what is the knowledge of Kyle Kulinski on politics? Because, when it was the transportation secretary situation, he said he didn't know what the transportation secretary did, which isn't a big deal, obviously, but you should Google it before you do a video. But it's understandable if you don't know what, like, random shit like transportation secretary does. Nobody can know that much information. There's a maximum information you can keep in your brain, and political science is obviously a massive field. But during this time, if you are somebody who is one of the biggest, you have almost 1 million subscribers, incredible amounts of influence, you represent, progressives, and you're sending out this tweet during a monumental strike of thousands of workers, that is a horrible, horrible look. And so people saying Kellogg's product being boycotted. I like cheez-its too, but this one defending him, this comment defends him. Never cross the picket line, not during a strike, sir. He even sent a video showing how to make your own scab-free cooking is actually what he sent. This one's saying to buy cheese nips instead of cheez-its because they had done some kind of agreement with their labor strike. There's another comment defending him. This one says scab, and it shows that the cheez-its are made by Kellogg's. Another tweet, I guess, with the video showing how to not be a scab and make your snacks. By the way, if you don't know what a scab is, I should explain. A scab is somebody who crosses a picket line. What that means is that can be in multiple ways. If striking workers are calling on goods to be boycotted, purchasing those boycotted goods makes you a scab because you're supporting the business. If workers are striking and they're hiring, the business is hiring, and you go and work for them, you're a scab. You're crossing the picket line by being employed by them. Kyle forgot his post on Reddit. Very important question because I'm high at the grocery store and they close at 10. Are we still boycotting Cheez-Its? Don't cross the picket line. Kellogg's is bad. Bro, don't cross the picket line. Cheez-Its are under Kellogg's. So you're crossing the picket line. Obviously, crossing the picket line is a huge, huge deal. Worker power is one of the most important issues today because corporate consolidation really harms workers, especially because what ends up happening is you end up having monopsonies. And so monopsony is when there's only one purchaser in the resource market, the resource market being the labor market. In the resource market, laborers are sellers. They sell their services as laborers. But in a lot of areas, especially with corporate consolidation, only one company is the seller, is the purchaser in the resource market, which means that they can control their prices in terms of wages, lowering the amount of power of workers and lowering their wages. So Amazon in a lot of areas, for example, is a monopsony, a regional monopsony, because they're essentially the only employer in a lot of areas. So they have undue control over their wages. And so if you have workers striking and things like this, it's very important because they are able to fight back and actually get proper wages for themselves. Especially, again, like if you have Kellogg's as the trust, in your area giving these jobs, they may be like the only employer. The workers don't really have any power whatsoever. Says, come on, bro. Easiest way to show solidarity with Kellogg's workers to not eat the Kellogg's product. You should know this. Kellogg's makes them. Workers are striking. Consumers should boycott. So there's just a bunch of people saying this stuff. There are two things that you could come away with this. You could come away with this essentially saying, look at this. This just goes to show you how crazy the corporate consolidation is and how big of a problem it is in America. If you want to be charitable towards Kyle Kulinski. Or you could essentially say, like, look at how uneducated he is and how irresponsible he is as a progressive commentator. All depends on the way that you want to take it. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on this down below.